Okay, so we're back. I decided that even though I've been doing videos where I like actively play and um, like create sims and stuff, I thought that it would be good to sort of go over beginner techniques if you are just starting, like first time you download the game or whatever. Because I know that when I started, even though I had watched people play, um, there's a lot of a learning curve with certain buttons and things. So should be this. So let's get started. This should be the screen that you see when you first load it up. It's usually just going to be sort of like this page to kind of show like spotlights, like packs, and like different uh, things that you can add extension wise. There might be like a gallery spotlight, and then sometimes they'll tell you about if there's like an update that happened and what's included. And then that's in my home. You can go to packs if for any time you want to like look at what packs that maybe you don't have or that you want. And then same thing for the kits. And so then you have on, let me go back to home. So it should have your username, and then there'll be this little side icon, which most of these are also apparent whenever you're in game, but I'll show that a little later. So you'll have resume if you actually have a save. If not, you would go to like new game, and that's where you then start the process. And we'll kind of go over it a little bit in this video. Some of it will also be other things that I cover later on. Load game, which will take you essentially to all of your saves. And if you want to, let's say you've done like some saves, but you want to go back and play a complete different one that you're not currently on, you can go to that. There's gallery, which is a nice quick way to go to the gallery. And essentially what it is it's this sort of community. It's like, I call it like community creations, where people might make other sims or other like houses, apartments, families, different things like that. And at any time you can go into the gallery and you can actually access these creations and save them into your own game. And then, so there's the actual gallery itself. There's going to be your creations. And so these are just sims that I've created. You can put a bio, different things like that. I don't have one. And then your actual, like, library, which will be, the stuff that's in your game. So that's the gallery. I don't have too much experience with it, which is why when I cover it, it's very brief. Another thing they have is if you wanted to play like different scenarios, then you could. So when you see people doing like different challenges, there's a chance they got it from here. I do want to eventually go and play some of these challenges, but I haven't. I don't know. They're kind of intimidate me a little bit, but maybe one of these days I'll play them. But right now we're just gonna go and pretend like I said, as if you are starting for the very first time. So aside from this window, let's say you go and push new game, it's going to load up and it's going to take some time, which is okay. But essentially, we're going to be entering into the create a sim mode, or as you'll see it abbreviated, CAS or CAS. And there's two different ways that you can actually create a sim. There is the way that they'll often prompt you to do it the very first time, which is taking like a sort of personality quiz, and then they'll generate like a sim both in look and like traits and whatnot. And I really like this method if, for instance, I want to like really quickly, I have my intentions of like just playing a world and I don't necessarily have specifics in mind per se, but I just want to really quickly like get up and go and play the game. And so I'm going to create a sim this way just to show you sort of like what it'll look like. And so if you push OK, then they'll start with like this question. So I'm just going to push some random things. So that then it'll generate one and you can see what I'm talking about. Different questions that'll gauge sort of what your sim is like, whether it be social, not so social. And then if at any point, let's say you get a question and you're like, I don't really like that question, you can easily just put new question and it'll give you something else completely. Usually the symbols at the top will also relate to what the question is. And as you can see, I'm literally just clicking random things. But if you had like sort of something in mind objective wise, then you can answer it like in the mindset of that sim. And so you see I clicked a bunch and it just generated a basic look for my sim. And then they don't generate the name, but there is also random name generators. We'll get to that point. Actually, let's go over it now. So you'll have the actual name where you can create a first and last name specified. And if you want, you can just randomize. Whenever I do, when I'm creating a sim using the quiz, that's often what I do. What I'll do is I'll just regularly randomly generate it. You can also even change pronouns. Um, and you can, if you wanted to, create custom pronouns. You have where you can create, you can pick if you're a male or female. There's also where you can click the three dots, and it'll take you to other capabilities. So like you figuring out if your frame's masculine or feminine, whether or not you can get pregnant, produce milk, how you pee, and there's even sexual orientation and romantic boundaries. Although I will say, I feel like the romantic boundaries, at least, that might be new and exclusive to the Love Struck expansion pack. I'm not quite sure. Other than that, you can decide whether or not your sim is a young adult, or an elder. As you can see, I don't, what is it called? You don't have the capability to just create like a child or anything like that. That'll come with the story. You can choose the walk type. This edit relationships isn't available currently because I only have one singular sim. But let's say this was a family and you were going in and you were creating or changing a certain sim, then you can edit the relationship. If let's say you create another sim in the household, and then you can even change the voice. And so just little different touches that help to make your gameplay that much more like customized to whatever you're trying to do. So you'll also probably have noticed over here we have the traits, and these, as if you do the quiz, you cannot change these. I think the only thing that you, no, I don't think you can change anything, but it essentially gives you a story. And so for my sim, their aspiration, which is what this big one that's sort of golden looks like, that is going to be what's called your aspiration. So for mine, it's public enemy, and right now I can't click on it to learn more about it because I didn't choose it. But when you're actually in game, and I'll go over that like probably in another video, you can actually, like, if you, let's say, forget or whatever, you can go and figure out and read up about what that aspiration entails. Oftentimes after you have, once you pick an aspiration, it will come with sort of like a booster trait or something that's associated with the actual aspiration. And so in this case, that makes my sim dastardly. Other traits of my sim that were created from that quiz were that the sim is mean, a goofball, and a child of the islands. Now, even though you can't change any of that, you can still, let's say, you can go in and you can, if you don't like the outfits, you can go in and actually change all of that. Pretty sure you can change also, like, just all the physical appearances you can change. What the personality quiz really does is it speeds up this whole process of picking traits and whatnot. Because especially if you don't have in mind traits that you want to pick and choose for it, it can be kind of hard. And so that's what the benefit or bright side. What I often do, and let's see if I'm gonna have to exit out of here, but that's okay. I'm just gonna exit out. What I often do, especially if I'm doing, let's say, a create a sim challenge, or if I know for sure I have a very clear idea and outline of what my sim looks like and how my sim generally is, then I will create a sim the other way, which I call sort of the long way, or the more manual / traditional way. And so then I'll put no thanks. It'll in general just have like sort of like a sim that just is generated, but you can change from there. And so you can do either or, where you do the traits and the name and the what is it called, pronouns and everything else like that. You could do that first, or you can actually, if you have a more clear picture of what your sim looks like, you can do that first. And we'll kind of go through we'll do looks and then we'll circle back to the traits. So oftentimes what I start with is the face, because when I have a vision, it usually is, I have a vision of like what the face looks like with the makeup, face shape, cheek structure, hair color, all that. And then I eventually go to like the style aspects in the body. So for the face, you can change the skin tones, and they have warm, neutral, as well as cool tones. Or if you're making sort of like a monstrous sim, which I recently found came very much in handy, they have these miscellaneous colors that aren't necessarily realistic, but if you want to go for something more fantastical, they're there. And you can even see, like, if you had a season in mind, or you can, like, what is it called, filter the different ones. So that's cool. Then they have faces, where it kind of is preset skin tones and other features that you can click on and choose. Let me take the sunglasses off of this sim so that you can kind of see the differences. So you'll see this sim, which has like nose, lips, cheeks, sort of all that figured out. And then if you click another one, it'll completely change that. These are convenient if, let's say, you have a general, you want to start off with like a generally similar vision, and then from there change things. And so, for instance, let me click this one. You can go into detail mode, and then you can change certain aspects. So let's say I wanted her eyes to be wider, I could widen those. Or if I wanted her cheeks to jut in more, or if I wanted her chin to be less long, you can even turn to the side. And if you want that to poke out more or less, same thing with the nose. So really a lot of chance for customization. Oftentimes if you're just like creating a sim and you're like really oriented and focused on the gameplay aspect of it, you might not necessarily care about those very refined details. But if you are like doing like a creative sim challenge or whatnot where you're really trying to nail a certain look, very convenient aspects. But let's say you didn't want to start with that. You'd start with the skin tone, um, and then you can go and click into different things. So for instance, you can change the head shape, or if you click on the cheeks, you can change the cheeks. They have the chin, the lips. So you can all change all that stuff manually. Um, but they also have skin details. So let's say you wanted to add wrinkles or smile lines or freckles, all that different stuff you can find in the skin details. They have teeth. Because I usually just make like fairly normal sims, they're usually like around young adult to adult. I don't find myself fully venturing much outside of like the typical teeth shapes, but they have some really fun ones. And then of course you have eye details like eye bags to just make your sim look that much more realistic. Then there's hair, which is probably of the facial details one of the things I spend the most time on, because especially as you buy like more you expand your game more with more content, they have some really interesting hair. And one thing I have not mentioned yet, but I'll mention now, is if let's say you want to filter a certain amount, because you're like, even though they have these sub categories like short, long, updos, you might still want to filter something out. Um, so just give yourself less options, make it easier to look through. You can change the different tags that are associated, whether that be outfit category, the actual length of, let's say in this case, hair. You could go with texture, so afro textured, straight, wavy, fashion choice, whether it be feminine or masculine, um, just different things associated with like content and packs. So you can change those tags anytime. But so that's hair. Then there's hat details, which are also another little cool feature if you have a very niche sort of sim or niche sort of story that you're going for. Once again, you can filter out which kinds of hats. Same thing for accessories, where you have piercings. I think these are mainly ear piercings, if I'm not. Yeah, so there are ear piercings, glasses and masks, necklaces. Now, one thing I will admit is that with the accessories, so there's accessories here, and then once you go to like actually customizing the outfits and whatnot, they also have accessories there. Sometimes I get a little mixed up. Um, then you of course have makeup. So that's all that you would customize up here. Then once you're ready to go to the body, this is what it'll look like. And so you'll notice this little bar at the side. And essentially what this is you can customize like how fit or not fit your sim is, as well as like how thin or thick that your sim is. So if you are going for a certain body type, once again, these are more important depending on how important really zhuzhing up and putting the details in your sim are. So some people, they might not really use it all that much. Other people might find that it's a very helpful thing to be used. So for the sim, you can, in addition to customizing those aspects, you can also customize, what is it called? So once again, you have certain preset bodies, and then you can kind of work from there. But you can also customize things like if your sim has tattoos, body hair, body scars, other skin details. And then, of course, you have the medical wearables. Styled looks, often very convenient for me if let's say I have a sim that I'm trying to make and I have no idea what combination that I'm looking for in like the top or bottoms and shoes. And so those are really cool things. Once again, the more expandable content that you have, the more like, what is it called? The more benefit slash options you have in this category. But it can be very cool. Even if I don't necessarily go with the exact styled look, if I see a look and I'm like, oh, I like that piece that they have on, then I'll use that and then like just change everything else. But that's that. Then you have, of course, your tops, which you're going to find things like blouses, jackets, t-shirts, sweaters, tanks, button-ups, all those different options. And even if it is a male or a female, you'll find that these options are pretty much the same. For a full body, whether it be suits or dresses or swimwear, yeah, bottoms, a bunch of different choices. It can get a little overwhelming sometimes, and that's like why I say that sometimes can be pretty convenient for me to go to styled looks just to get an idea of maybe what I'm going for. But if you have a vision in mind, then by all means go crazy. Then, like I was talking about, they have accessories that are more I feel like geared towards outfits. So you have bracelets, gloves, rings, fingernails, toenails, leggings, and even socks. And then obviously you have shoes. Now you might have noticed up here for the outfits, even though I've pretty much maintained in this one section, you are going to be prompted to create outfits for all of these different occasions slash seasons or weather. And so I'll sort of go through each one. Now, once you start off, as well as your sim sort of being randomly generated, they'll also have different event outfits generated. So you have everyday wear, which is what I was just on. Now you have formal wear, sports wear, what your sim sleeps in, party wear, swimwear, as well as an outfit for both hot weather and cool weather. And so that's a lot of customization, which is why I say there's a lot that you can do and make even just in the Create a Sim area. So that's all of those. And for each of those scenarios, you can change pretty much everything. If you wanted to change hair and outfits and shoes and everything, you 100% could. So I'm pretty much going to leave this as is for the most part. I also forgot to mention this, but so we're on shoes currently, but if you wanted to, let's say you like these sandals and you wanted them to be on every single outfit, you could push this button and it would go and apply it to every single outfit. Or if you wanted to do only certain ones. So let's say you wanted to do everyday and swimwear and hot weather, you can go and you can do that as well. At any time, if you, let's say, make a selection and you're like, oh, I don't really like that, you can push undo. So that's fine. Or if you decide, oh, I actually did like that, you can redo it as well. Here's another randomize button like I talked about, where if you really want to, you can go and randomize your sim once again, and it'll give you a completely different look and sim. You can also do the same thing for the outfits. In this case, I'm on the shoes, like I said, so it was going to do the shoes, but let's say I was on tops. I can randomize the top. What else is there? So you can also randomize from gallery. There's some aspects that you'll notice it kind of seems like I'm finding out for the first time. That's because it is, or because I don't necessarily play with all these different things. But if you wanted to choose randomize from gallery, there we go. As you can see, this is a sim that probably if you play, Bella Goth. We're gonna go back, but that's an option as well. That's pretty much the gist of sort of creating your sim aesthetic wise, as far as like what they look like with their outfits, as well as just their what is it called? Genes. Now we're gonna get into traits and actually like giving your sim a personality. So one of the first things over here on the left side you'll see is aspiration. And essentially it's kind of like your Sim's purpose or their goal in life, what they want to achieve long term, and overarching. For me, these are the ones that I have. Depending on the how you expand your game, you may or may not have more. But you have things sort of like athleticism, food, love, nature, popularity, knowledge, those different things. And I'm probably should mention it later on, but I'm gonna mention it now. If you want to, you can just completely randomize every single trait that you have. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that just to show you what comes up. So as you can see, for us, it gave us bookworm, geek, jealous. And as you can see, you can still go in and actually choose what aspiration you want to. And if you want, you can just like base it off of those. I'm gonna go back though. So for aspiration, you can choose that first, or if you want to, you can go in and you can pick your traits first and then base your aspiration off that. And so if you go and let's say you don't randomize them, you have different traits to pick from, things that are related to emotions, hobbies, lifestyle, as well as how social or unsocial your sim is. And I find it often pretty overwhelming, and I feel like there's probably other people who do as well, which is why something like randomizing the traits can be very convenient. For me, if I am handpicking them, I often like to go with sort of a personal rule of thumb where like to go with the personal rule of thumb where I'll do around two traits being good and then do one that's not so good. You can switch that around if you want. It can be all bad. If you want, it can be all good. It really depends on what you're trying to get out of this sim and what their life is going to be looking like. So I'll just kind of go through a couple. For our emotional, you have things like clumsy, ambitious, erratic, genius, hot-headed, unflirty, self-assured, romantically reserved. And again, I do think that some of these are also unlocked with more expansion of your game. I could be wrong though. But some of them, I like get new packs and I'll be like, oh, I didn't notice that before. For trait or for hobbies, I do wish they had more. I feel like this is like the smallest amount of traits, and I kind of wish there was more. But they have art lover, bookworm, foodie, geek, loves outdoors, as well as music lover. Then, of course, for your lifestyle, you have things like if you're a perfectionist or if you're lazy, materialistic, vegetarian, child of ocean, active, different things like that. And then finally, you have sociability. So you might be family oriented or nosy or mean or non-committal or good or generous, different things like that. I'm just going to randomize this. So this time we got neat, child of the ocean, and a kleptomaniac. In addition, so let's try to, I guess, match up an aspiration to that. I feel like a criminal might be actually a pretty good trait for that. Like a sly criminal, like a spy or something. Let's see if they have any. So that will be under deviance. Let's see if it loads up. Okay, so we have Seeker of Secrets, Villainous Valentine, Public Enemy, and Chief of Mischief. I feel like Seeker of Secrets is a bit interesting. The sim loves the thrill of discovering juicy secrets about other sims. What they do with that information has yet to be decided. We'll just pick that. And so, of course, dastardly is associated. Now, you might have noticed this other question mark that's lingering. This is where you can pick preferences. And I will note that because I do have the ability to turn ons and turn offs because of the Love Struck expansion pack that I have. If you don't have that, then you likely will just see this first one, which is likes and dislikes. So you can choose like what activities your sim might like or not like. And you can also put 0, and then as you play it out, if you're doing something, they might ask you like, oh, your sim, do you want to accept the fact that your sim likes this or the fact that your sim doesn't like this? But this is something that if you, again, have a vision in mind, you might want to already go ahead and pick that your sim likes to do certain things and doesn't like it. Like, for instance, I could say that she likes mischief. And what else? Mischief. Let's say I want to do one more. Let's say romance skill. But you could also put things that you don't like. So let's say she hates violin and she hates singing. Those things. You can also do colors, different decor types. I don't mess with this that much because I'm not super knowledgeable about decor, but you could also put decor types as well as music genres. And similar to like everything else, you can go in and you can randomize all of your preferences as well. Same thing can be said for turn-ons and turn-offs if that's something that is part of your game. Once you are all done with, okay, let me go over a couple other things before I say that. You can, like I mentioned, add a sim if you really wanted to. So let's say you wanted to play around with her genetics. You can make one that way. Or if you can even get one, if you have one saved to the gallery. What is an occult sim? I have no idea what an occult sim is. I'll admit that. You can add a completely new sim that you create, and then also you can add a sim through the story. So let's say in the story you have another sim, and you're like, let's add them to the family and have them have a relationship with them. Like whether it be son, sister, brother, different things like that. You can do that. I'm kind of curious. Oh, okay, you can add like a mermaid. Okay. But, so you can add a sim that way. But once you are done, you can choose to save this household like that. It'll also prompt you to save it if you click this checkmark button. But once you save it, it'll take you to actually go and play this sim. So let's say you're doing a creative sim challenge or something where you're just really only using the creative sim environment. You'd want to go to this, click this icon, save household, rather than clicking this icon because it's going to take you, once you're done, it's done saving, it's going to take you to go actually play the sim. But we'll just go ahead and save it. Oh, I don't have a name picked out, so we'll do Deborah Hunter. That works. I didn't even pick her pronouns. So once it does that, then it's gonna load up, and it'll look something like this. Has a picture. You could even randomize the portrait. So if you wanted to just kind of like play around with how she's posing, you can do that. You can even add comments because other people are most likely going to be able to access these. So if you want to, like, let's say I'm just saying that, let's see, in this case, I can just make her a playtester sim. You can do that. If you do use mods, then you can let people know that you're using mods and it'll showcase like that. But then you would choose share household to gallery, or if you want to save it to your library, either or. In this case, I'm just going to save it to my library. Similarly speaking, if at any point in time you want to open the gallery, you can do that. And I'm just going to pretend like I'm just kind of like shopping around. Then let's say you like this sim. You can go in and it tells you what packs that it uses. In this case, I don't own some of these packs. And because I don't own some of these packs, if I were to utilize this sim, let's say like the top or the jewelry, I wouldn't have that because I don't have the packs. I'm sure there's a way to, yes, you can show ones that are just use the base game. And I mean, you still have options. I'm just kind of trying to scroll a little bit. Okay, let's say I like this sim. If you want, you can save it to your library. You can favorite it. Or if you want to even place the household in your game, you can do that. You also, if you need help at any time, you can open up this help center, and you can create a sim from the story, like I talked about with the quiz. It can take you through a tutorial of how to actually customize your sim, or even it'll take you to the lessons category, which I'm not going to click this now because I'm going to show you elsewhere. Okay, but you can unclick it like that. Notification wall. So this options menu is available no matter, like, I think the only place it isn't available because it's right there is in the main menu. But if you're in the creative sim environment, or if you're in your actual like build mode or live mode actually playing the game, you can access this at any time. And um, you can save or save as, which in this case I don't have that option because I haven't even started playing. You can do game options where you can actually go in and customize your, like, how your game actually shows up. So whether it be your audio, your gameplay, your environment, all those different things. And so you can go in here and change things, like if you have the seasons, for instance, you can change how long that is, how long the lunar cycle is, just different aspects of your game. Note, if you do change anything, most of the time it prompts you to actually restart the game in order for those changes to apply. So just want to let that be known. You can go and do technical support, which will take you to a browser outside of the game if there's something going wrong. And then those lessons that I mentioned. Now this will get bigger depending on how big your game is. So like, as you can see, after the gallery, I have things like city living, seasons, island living, for rent, and more that are just there because I bought the pack, and so now they're giving me information about it. But in general, if at any point in time you need guidance on, like for instance, how to play in live mode and the different things to do, or what to do in build mode, you can go in and access this, and it'll walk you through different aspects of the game. There's release notes, credits, things I don't necessarily push on. You can also access your achievements, manage your worlds, or if you just want to like exit, let's say, to the main menu, or just complete your game overall. If you are going to exit your game, it'll ask, hey, do you want to save this before you leave, like that. But I did want to go over that because let's say you're starting and you're like, oh, I gotta log off or whatever, or if you want to like go back for whatever reason, you can do that. If you hit the escape button on your keyboard, that's a quick way to also pop that up if you don't want to just go over there and click it, but you can also just do that. That's really all that I wanted to cover. So, only say